are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for all right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final
yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth, and it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday, January 9th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining. Between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, gsmcpodcast.net. That is gsmcpodcast.net. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we're going to start off the show. We are going to talk about Tom Brady trying to recruit Bill Belichick to the Raiders, according to some reports, and how Belichick is kind of getting some interest from NFL teams, despite him taking the North Carolina job. So we'll get into that. We'll also get into talking about, in the second part of the show as well, who's under more pressure going into the postseason. Is it Lamar Jackson or is it Josh Allen? Then we'll get into if there's any concern of rust for Jalen Hurts, as he did return to practice for the Eagles. So he is going to play on Sunday, I would imagine, against the Packers in the wild card game. So is there any concern there with, him being away for these past few weeks? We'll also get into talking about Travis Kelce and his comments on some criticism surrounding the Chiefs on them resting their starters for the game against the Broncos and allowing them to win that game and get in, and the Bengals getting knocked out because of it. So we'll talk about that. And then in the final part of the show, we'll actually rank the playoff games from least intriguing to most intriguing. So that'll conclude the show there. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the reports of Tom Brady talking to an old friend about maybe wanting the Raiders job. So the Raiders, of course, we talked about this week, and that is they let go of Antonio Pierce. And Tom Brady is a part-time owner of the Raiders. And according to reports, he reached out to Bill Belichick on, the possibility of maybe coaching the Raiders. Now, Bill Belichick has already taken a job, and that is, of course, with the Tar Heels. And supposedly, it's not just the Raiders. There are other teams as well that are potentially interested in Belichick. And Belichick designed his contract where, there is going to be a buyout. So if he ended up leaving, he could either pay it or, the team that signs him could pay the buyout as well. Now, I wanted to find the specifics of the contract. So Belichick, okay, so here it is. Belichick's contract at North Carolina includes a $10 million buyout if he leaves prior to June 1st, 2025, though it's not entirely clear whether it would apply if he returns to the NFL in the coming weeks. Either way, it's a fraction of Belichick's salary by the end of his Patriots tenure, making it relatively easy to get out of whether an NFL team or Belichick himself pays the buyout. But it would be interesting if he decided, you know what, I'm going to go to the NFL. I'm going to go back to the NFL, and then he's just going to pick up and leave after, committing to North Carolina, which is, kind of similar to what we did with the Jets, where he took the job and then he resigned immediately. So we'll have to see. I feel like the door is not completely closed on the NFL, and it does make me wonder, why he didn't wait until the end of the regular season here to see, the other jobs that were going to open, because, he kind of he decided this maybe a little bit prematurely instead, and just went to the college game, which is a little surprising because I always was of the mindset that if he were to come back, it was going to be with an NFL team. But that's not the case here. But now all of a sudden, Tom Brady's reaching out. Supposedly there's other teams interested. I mean, supposedly, he reached out to the Jets. We talked about that. So it does make me wonder why Belichick didn't just wait, unless he wasn't in love with what was going to be available. But could it also be, hey, the Raiders' job is open, and I don't know, how would Belichick feel if he became the head coach of the Raiders and Tom Brady is above him? I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. We saw what Brady did without Belichick. Brady won a Super Bowl. Brady was in the playoffs every year with the Bucs. I know the last year wasn't great. They went 8-9, but they still won the division. And when you look at what happened with the Patriots after Brady left, they missed the playoffs. Then they made it with Mac Jones' rookie season. They got obliterated by the Bills in the playoffs. And then the last 2 years were not good, especially last year. The previous year they went, I think, 8-9. But it wasn't great after Brady left. And in some people's eyes, that kind of tarnished Belichick's legacy, because now people would say, well, maybe it was more Brady than it was Belichick. But the two guys needed each other. So, yeah, it does make me wonder if he were to let's say he did take the Raiders job, or he doesn't take the Raiders job. Is it because, well, now Brady would technically be his boss? That would be weird. Again, I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not saying that that's factual. But, yeah, it seems like Belichick is going to, at least, from his comments, from what I was reading, he said that he's not going anywhere. Like, he's gonna stay with UNC, at least for the moment. Because maybe it's 1 year and then he comes back to the NFL. I don't know. Because I did have, in the article I have, oh yeah, so he said in the CBS article I have here, I didn't come here to leave. So, I mean, he's going to stay. At least that's what he's saying. But he could always change his mind. But it is interesting, though. And, the fact that Brady, talked to him about coaching the Raiders, I think things have kind of smoothed out a little bit. Because when you had the split before the 2020 season, everything about their relationship, it was maybe a little bit fractured. All those reports of, Belichick wanting Garoppolo to be the starter going forward and not Brady, and then they traded Garoppolo, but then Brady won another Super Bowl with the Patriots, and then he won a Super Bowl with the Bucs. It was all that. But, I think time has passed, and, of course, when they were honoring Brady at Gillette Stadium, Belichick got that huge ovation. The relationship is fine, at least from the surface. So, and you know what? Brady knows Belichick, and Belichick is obviously one of the greatest head coaches of all time, not the greatest. They did a lot of winning together. And the Raiders are a team that needs stability because they have not had that. They are one of those teams that has gone through so many head coaches over the years. They need something. Now, the only thing with Belichick is he's on the older side. So, yeah, maybe you bring in Belichick and you have stability, but it might not be for that long. You might have to have a successor waiting because, who knows how much longer Belichick wants to coach for. Is he going to coach throughout this whole contract that he has at UNC? I don't know. I am really intrigued by him going to college. How is he going to turn that program around? That's something I definitely want to pay close attention to. Because I just didn't, you wouldn't have expected it. I didn't really expect it. I thought he would be back in the NFL. But, he went ahead and signed with UNC, and, we'll see how it goes. But it is interesting, though, that teams are showing interest, now. But, it's because it's the end of the season. And, Belichick, as of the moment, made up his mind, and he's going to be coaching in college for the 2025 season. So, we'll see how it goes. But let me know what you guys think, though, about Brady reaching out to Belichick. What are your thoughts on that? Let me know in the comments. So, we're going to take our first break of the show now. And then when we come back, we'll talk about two quarterbacks in these upcoming playoffs. Who's under more pressure going into the playoffs? Is it Lamar Jackson or is it Josh Allen? And these are two guys that are the leading candidates for the MVP. So we'll get into that. They both will be playing this weekend. Lamar Jackson will be playing on Saturday, and Josh Allen will be playing on Sunday. And if both of those two guys win, we'll be seeing them in the divisional round, which I kind of hope we do because I think it would be a great game. But we'll see what happens. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to now talk about which quarterback is under the most pressure, or under more pressure, going into the postseason. Is it Lamar Jackson, or is it Josh Allen? So, Lamar Jackson is 2-4 in the playoffs, and Josh Allen is 5-5. Now, both of these guys, like I said, going into the break, they're up for MVP, and it's going to be very close. They both have had incredible seasons, and it's possible that we could see them match up in the playoffs in the following round, depending on if they both win. Now, right now, I would lean towards saying they are going to win their matchups on Sunday or this weekend, but you never know. You never know. Anything can happen. For Josh Allen, he well, actually, I think both quarterbacks made their playoff debuts. Nope, that's not true. Lamar Jackson in 2018 against the Chargers, he lost that game. Josh Allen made his playoff debut the following season against the Texans, and they were winning that game for the most part, and then Deshaun Watson and the Texans came back. They won that game in overtime, I believe. So they both lost their playoff debuts. So Lamar Jackson, his playoff career, like I said, he's Josh Allen's 5-5. Lamar Jackson's 2-4. So he lost his first two playoff games. The first one was against the Chargers, like I said, was not great. And then his first MVP year, he lost to Derrick Henry and the Titans. And then the following year, won against the Titans in Nashville, lost to Josh Allen and the Bills the following week, and then last year beat the Texans in the divisional round and then lost to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. And then for Josh Allen, like I said, lost to the Texans in the wild card round in the 2019-2020 playoffs. Then the following season, beat the Colts, beat the Bills, and then lost to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. Then they beat the Patriots in the wild card round. They lost to the Chiefs in the divisional round. That was the epic, 43-36 game, or 42-36. The final score of that game was. That was one of the best playoff games I've ever watched. Then the following season, they beat Skylar Thompson and the Dolphins, and then he lost to Joe Burrow in the divisional round, and then last year beat the Steelers and then lost to the Chiefs. So he's 0-3 against Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. Lost his first career playoff game, and then he also lost to Joe Burrow. And then for Lamar Jackson, like I said, lost to Derrick Henry, lost to Phillip Rivers, and lost to Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. So for me, I feel like Josh Allen, he's played better in the playoffs than Lamar Jackson has. He averages almost 300 yards passing per game. The completion percentage is 64.6. Has had some monster playoff games. Like I said, against the Chiefs, he had 4 touchdowns. Against the Patriots, he had 5 touchdowns. Josh Allen has been solid in the playoffs. And Lamar Jackson has had... It's not like Lamar Jackson hasn't had any good games either. But Josh Allen's numbers are better in the postseason. And Lamar Jackson's completion percentage is 57.4. For me, when it comes to these playoffs, I think it's Lamar Jackson. Now, I think both quarterbacks are under some pressure going in. But I do think ultimately, when you look at these two players and their body of work when it comes to the postseason, and on top of that, Lamar Jackson has 2 MVPs, and he might win his third one. Lamar Jackson, to me, I think is under more pressure to deliver in these playoffs. The Ravens went out and they got Derrick Henry. Now, Zay Flowers is not going to play this weekend. I don't know if he's going to be able to play in the playoffs in general, but, that's a weapon. Not having him, that's a big loss. And I just think the Ravens, they can still make a run here. Now, this team might not be as good as last year because the defense is weaker, a bit weaker, but they've been playing better as of late. But I still think the Ravens are one of those teams, and the Bills are one of those teams, absolutely, as well, that, they can make a Super Bowl run. There's 3 teams, and I've said this. The 2 guys you see here and Patrick Mahomes. Those are the Super Bowl contenders right there. And these 2 guys have fallen short in this Patrick Mahomes era. But I think Lamar Jackson is under more pressure, and can he deliver? I think if, you get past this weekend, you got a tough path, because I think you're going to run into the Bills, and then you probably run into Kansas City. That's tough. And then vice versa when it comes to Josh Allen. You'll be running into the Ravens. If everything goes how I think it's going to go, they'll run into the Ravens, and then if they win that, they run into the Chiefs. You got to get past the Chiefs. Both of these guys, if they want to get to the Super Bowl, in my opinion, Patrick Mahomes is going to be standing in their way once again. But, these MVP years for Lamar Jackson, though. 2019, it surprised a lot of people that they lost to the Titans. Now, they received some criticism because of the layoff, because they rested their starters, and then, of course, you had the bye week. And, it looked like maybe there was a bit of rust and that the Ravens weren't prepared when they went up against the Titans. Now, I think part of it was just Derrick Henry ran all over them. And Ryan Tannehill had a good game. Threw a couple of touchdown passes. Derrick Henry actually threw a touchdown pass in that game too. But, yeah, the Ravens, they looked out of sorts in that game. And that was disappointing to a lot of people because, I don't think anybody expected the Ravens to lose that game. Lamar Jackson, in that game, he went 31 of 59, 365 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Was sacked 4 times. He was actually sacked 7 times in his playoff debut. Well, the Chargers team that year was pretty good. That was the year people thought the Chargers were going to do something, and then the Patriots smacked them around in the divisional round. But, yeah, that was disappointing. But then Lamar Jackson got his revenge the following season, and then lost to Josh Allen in the divisional round that year. He went 14 of 24 for 162 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. I think he got hurt in that game, too. Tyler Huntley, I think, had to finish that game. But, yeah, even against the Texans last year, look, the Texans just were an inferior team. Lamar Jackson went 16 to 22, 152 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. In all of his playoff games, he hasn't put up monster stats. And then last year against the Chiefs, 20 of 37, 272 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. And the Ravens' offense struggled in that game, and they kind of abandoned the run early. Again, they only ran the ball like 6 times. Derrick Henry, you better not do that. You got to give Derrick Henry the ball. And I think especially with Zay Flowers being hurt, they're going to have to put an emphasis on the run. So, like I said, I think both quarterbacks, there is pressure going into the playoffs for both of them because, they're in this Patrick Mahomes era where it's just been Patrick Mahomes and really nobody else. In the Patrick Mahomes era, I'm going to say it again, the only other quarterbacks that have won since he's become a starter is Tom Brady and Matthew Stafford, quarterbacks from the previous era. Who is going to be the first guy to come out of that group of Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert? Who's going to come out from that group and win? Now, there's some other quarterbacks that could do it as well. You got Jordan Love in the playoffs. You got Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix making their playoff debuts. You got Jalen Hurts as well. Who's going to be the quarterback from that group, and C.J. Stroud as well, that is going to crack through? Now, I think, the ones that I said first, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert now with John Harbaugh, I think it's going to be one of those 4 guys. Maybe it's Jalen Hurts. I think it's going to be one of those guys that's going to crack through first. But who is it going to be? Joe Burrow's the only one that got to a Super Bowl. yeah, and even talking about the AFC specifically, even the Super Bowl that Brady won, who's Brady playing against? Mahomes. You know, the only year that Mahomes hasn't been in the Super Bowl in his era is, 2018 when Brady made it instead of him. And then, Brady made it on the AFC side, forgot, with the Patriots. But he's in the AFC Championship game every year. So, yeah, you got Brady from AFC and then Burrow from the AFC as well. But Mahomes is in the AFC Championship game every year. So, it's unbelievable, really. We'll see what happens, though. Both quarterbacks on the screen here, they've played really well this year. And I know there's chatter like, hey, this is going to be the year. But they got to go out there and prove it. And for me, Lamar Jackson, you got 2 MVPs. I think, it's on you to go out there and deliver. It's like I said, Josh Allen, even in the losses, some of his losses, he has played well. And, football is a team sport, so you can't put 100% on the blame on both of these guys. But, look at that playoff game against the Chiefs when it went into overtime. Josh Allen threw 4 touchdown passes. I mean, what more did he have to do? He went toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes and lost. Last year, the Ravens' defense kept them in it. The Chiefs went right down the field in their first drive, but then after that, the Ravens' defense held it down. The Chiefs did score a couple of times but after that, but still, the game was right there for the Ravens to win. And, Lamar Jackson threw that horrible pick to Isaiah Likely. He just wasn't great. But, I mean, it's not his fault that Zay Flowers fumbled. You can't forget that. That would have been a touchdown. But I think for me it's Lamar Jackson who's under more pressure. But again, both quarterbacks are under pressure going into the playoffs. And we'll see if they can deliver. We'll see if this is a year. Now, if you guys know what my Super Bowl prediction was before the season started, it might not be the year. But, again, we will have to wait and see on that. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think, though. Who's under more pressure going into these playoffs? Let me know in the comments. So, before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if there's any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast that you want to see me acknowledge. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCpodcast.net. That is GSMCpodcast.net. So when we come back from our next break, we will talk about Jalen Hurts. I know I brought him up briefly in this segment. Is there any concern of there being rust going into the playoffs with him, being out for the last few weeks? And the Eagles getting ready for their game against the Packers. So we'll talk about that when we return from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, Now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about Jalen Hurts returning to practice. And if there's any concern of there being of him being rusty going into this game against the Packers. Now, I went back to 2022 because if you remember, Jalen Hurts got injured, and he missed the game against the Saints, and then he played a little bit. Actually, I don't know. Did he play the whole game against the Giants in the regular season finale? I don't remember, but he did play. I have his stats here. He went 20 of 35 for 229 yards, no touchdowns and a pick. But there was still some concern for him going into the postseason, and he was fine. He was fine. The Eagles, they crushed the Giants, then they crushed the 49ers. I don't know why I said the Seahawks. But then he had a good Super Bowl. So in the 2022 playoffs, Hurts had a passer rating of 96.9 with 579 yards and 3 touchdowns in 3 games. It's pretty good. Well, the 49ers game, Brock Purdy got hurt, and they kind of just, were in control of that game. He only went 15 of 25 for 121 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Against the Giants, 16 of 24, 154 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. In the Super Bowl, that was his best performance from that season, 27 of 38, 304 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. He did have a fumble in the game that led to a Nick Bolton touchdown. But Hurts had a good postseason. And now going up against the Packers, obviously different injury, because I believe it was a shoulder injury, what kept him out, and then had a missed time. I think it's a different injury. It's a concussion, obviously, but him returning to practice is a good sign, of course, and he is going to play, I would imagine. Like I said, I'm not really concerned about there being rust. Now, I think the Eagles are kind of catching the Packers at a good time because the Packers are kind of, I guess, limping into the playoffs. They're not coming in with momentum right now. They've lost their last 2 games. Jordan Love is banged up. Both quarterbacks are coming in banged up. The Packers lost one of their receivers. They're missing one of their top corners. And you know what? If they want to, look, if they got to ease Jalen Hurts back into it, you got Saquon Barkley, who can carry the load. This Packers run defense can be had. So I'm not really concerned about Jalen Hurts and him being rusty going into this game. Maybe there's a little bit of rust, but even if there is a little bit of rust, I don't think it's going to be enough where the Eagles are in trouble. Because the Eagles are one of the best teams in the NFL. And he's going to be backed behind a very good running game and, of course, a very good defense. I don't think rust is going to be a problem. And, I talked about it a few times leading up to the playoffs that, I wanted to see him in this passing game be better. And they have shown that, look, if they got to play that kind of game, they could do that. They have the players to do it. You got 1A and 1B, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and Saquon Barkley, of course, can catch passes out of the backfield if he has to. The Eagles can beat you in different ways. So, yeah, I'm not really concerned about it. I think this game is going to be, if it's going to be a blowout, I don't think the Packers are going to blow out the Eagles if they win this game like they did Dallas. That's not going to happen. I think if the Packers win this game, it's going to be a close game. I think if it's a blowout, I think it'd be the Eagles that would blow out the Packers and not vice versa. But I don't think the game is going to be that way. Especially because I think the Packers are due to have a good game. These last couple weeks it hasn't looked great. So, and now it's the playoffs. You throw everything out the window, you're in. Let's see what happens. And, for at least, the one postseason where they went to the Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts played well. Last year was not good. They were one and done. And the year before the Super Bowl year, they were one and done as well. And oddly enough, both games were against the Buccaneers in Tampa. And one of them was with Tom Brady, and the other was with Baker Mayfield last year. So what are we going to get out of Jalen Hurts this year? Well, those two games were on the road. The Eagles, they were the number 1 seed in 2022. They're the number 2 seed this year. So they're at home. They won their 2 playoff games at home when they went to the Super Bowl. I think Jalen Hurts is going to do well. And he's done well against the Packers. He hasn't lost to the Packers yet. Now, in Brazil, both teams played sloppy. That game was so long ago, you could almost categorize that as a different season. Not really, but I'm just saying that because that's how long ago it was. Well, yeah, it's kind of a different season because we're in 2025. That was in September of 2024. Now we're playing at Lincoln Financial Field. It's going to be, I would say it'd be a less sloppy. It's not going to be as sloppy of a game. But I think we'll see turnovers. But yeah, I'm not really, like I said, I'm not concerned about Jalen Hurts going in. But yeah, it has been a while because the last time he played was against Washington. And, then they had Kenny Pickett start against Dallas, and then you had him get hurt, and then Tanner McKee came in, and he finished the job. He threw a touchdown to A.J. Brown, and then, they beat the Giants with him at quarterback. Is Jalen Hurts a system quarterback, though? No, he's not. He's not. The Eagles have enough. The Eagles, I think, will be okay for this game. Again, I'm trying hard not to give away who I'm going to pick, but I think you could probably tell where I'm leaning as of right now. We'll make our picks tomorrow. But we will talk about the playoff games at the end of the show when I rank them. But yeah, this Eagles team is just too good. Even if, well, I don't know if you want to see Kenny Pickett or Tanner McKee in the playoffs. It's a whole different thing. And the Eagles, they've had years where, they've had to start backup quarterbacks or they've had to put in backup quarterbacks, and it's worked out. Look what happened, when Carson Wentz gets hurt, Nick Foles goes into the playoffs. Nick Foles was great, wins the Super Bowl. Following year, if Alshon Jeffrey doesn't bobble that pass and it gets picked off by the Saints, who knows? Do they go on another run again? And then the following year, Carson Wentz finally starts a playoff game. He gets hurt, and they got to put in Josh McCown. So the Eagles don't want to do that again. Unless, I don't see Tanner McKee or Kenny Pickett leading them to a Super Bowl. I really don't. If it's going to be a quarterback, if it's going to be a quarterback that leads them to the Super Bowl, it's Jalen Hurts. But I don't know. We'll see how this game goes. Obviously, with the playoffs this week, going to be completely locked in. The NFC playoffs, I've said it a lot this week. The NFC playoffs are going to be really good. I think they are going to be. You're going to see some of the best games that you've seen this weekend, all year. From all year, the best games are going to be this weekend, and then we'll see what happens the following weekend too. I'm looking forward to it. And then obviously, like I said, I'll be ranking the playoff games from least intriguing to most intriguing. Now, it was very tough to rank them because I think all the games this weekend are good. I mean, some more than others, but I don't think there's one game I look at and say, yeah, this game's going to be horrible. I mean, maybe you guys probably have some that you're like, yeah, this game's going to stink, but I don't know. I like all the matchups this weekend. I think you'll be surprised by what I put at number one. But little tease, though, it's not this one. It's not this one. Packers, Eagles. Because we got it already. We got it already this year. I mean, it's going to be a different game. It's not going to be, what was it, 34-29, whatever it was. And Jordan Love got hurt in that game. And now he's coming in hurt. A little bit banged up. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. But like I said, I'm not too concerned just because we've seen Jalen Hurts get hurt, and then he ends up putting together a good postseason. Different kind of injury, I get it, but I'm not overly concerned. But let me know what you guys think though about the news of Jalen Hurts returning to practice. Very encouraging though. That's a good sign. Because yeah, if they had to start Kenny Pickett or Tanner McKee in the playoffs, yeah, I wouldn't feel too good about them. But that's my thoughts on it. So we're going to take our next break. When we come back, we'll talk about the Chiefs receiving some criticism and Travis Kelce defending his team because people are talking about, the Chiefs resting their starters and, saying that they threw the game against the Broncos and they prevented the Bengals from making the playoffs. So we'll get into that. I have a lot to say about that when we return. So with that being said, stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we're going to now talk about the Chiefs losing to the Broncos and them receiving some heat over, resting their starters this past week. And I guess people are like, well, that's now because of that, the Bengals couldn't make the playoffs. And Travis Kelce had some comments on his podcast, so I wanted to get into what he had to say on that. So he said he's not scared of anybody. Now, that's not exactly what he said, but I can't say word for word what he said because then I would not be doing this podcast anymore. He said, I wanted the Bengals in the playoffs. I wanted to slay every dragon one by one like Mortal Kombat. I don't even want this to be like we played the lowest seed. Just give me the best AFC teams, or just give me the best teams. AFC, NFC, give me all of them, Mortal Kombat style. I'll go through every one of them. I'm not scared. Now I keep having these ads pop up when I'm trying to read what he said. I'm not scared of a single soul, man. But yeah, people are saying that, they lost because they didn't want the Bengals to make the playoffs. Also, he continued by saying, I'll play the Bengals at the Walmart parking lot. I don't care. We can have our own game in the offseason where we really duke it out. Listen, I love competing against the greatest. The Bengals were a great team, or a fun team, to watch there towards the end of the season. And it's a shame they didn't make it in the playoffs because they would have made the playoffs that much crazier, which I agree, and that much more fun. But there are people that are saying that the Chiefs purposely lost. First of all, teams have been doing this for years where, they're locked into whatever seed they're in, They have nothing to play for. They rest their starters. It happens. So you can't blame the Chiefs for doing that. And the other thing, too, is the Bengals had 17 games this season. And they went 9-8. You win at least one more of those games, and you're in. How about this? Maybe you don't lose to the Patriots week 1, and you'd be in the playoffs right now. And the Bengals, in the Joe Burrow era, they've had these years where they start off slow, and then, they find their groove, and everything's all good in the world. But this was the year that didn't happen. Well, I guess, no, it still did happen, but it was too little too late. So the Bengals have nobody to blame but themselves for missing the playoffs. I'm sorry. Now, there's not one individual player or one individual coach to put the blame on. It was a team effort. Like Joe Burrow had this MVP season. Jamar Chase won the Triple Crown. He had a great year. They found a spark plug in Chase Brown. T. Higgins, was banged up, but whenever he played, he was good. The offense was great. But, there was a couple of times where Burrow turned the ball over, and there were some questionable decisions. Maybe not going for 2 against the Ravens in Baltimore, even though their defense has not been good. Although it did play better towards the end of the year. But, And then you also, the kicking game as well. McPherson missing kicks. I mean, Cade York almost costed them that game against the Broncos. And, in overtime, the Bengals are like, no, you're not kicking this ball again. We're punching it into the end zone. And that's what they did. Look, give the Bengals credit. They were 4-8. They won their final 5 games. They made the playoff. Or, no, they didn't make the playoffs. They set themselves up after they beat the Steelers on Saturday where, hey, if the Dolphins lose and the Broncos lose, we're going to get in. But it didn't happen. Now, Aaron Rodgers helped them out. They beat the Dolphins. The Jets beat the Dolphins. Now, part of that was because Tua didn't play. I think if Tua plays, I think that game goes differently. It came down to the Broncos and the Chiefs. Now, I thought the Chiefs were going to be more competitive in the game, but they got shut out. And the other thing, too, is let's not pretend like the Broncos are not a good team. The Broncos are a good team. Bo Nix has had a good year. Their defense is good. Like, the Broncos deserve to get in. So it's not like a team made it that doesn't deserve to get in. The Broncos deserve to be in this postseason. So I don't understand why people are saying, "Oh, the Chiefs purposely lost." Like, no. And you know what? Look, the whole thing with Burrowhead, that's over. You know why? Because the Chiefs beat the Bengals in the playoffs in the AFC Championship game a couple of years ago. And since then, the Bengals have not made the playoffs. And the Chiefs won another Super Bowl. After they beat the Bengals, they beat the Eagles. And then last year, they beat the 49ers. They have 2 rings. And the Bengals, they were kind of feeling themselves a little bit with that. Because, Patrick Mahomes was winless against Joe Burrow. And now since then, since Burrowhead, Joe Burrow is winless against Patrick Mahomes now. They lost in the Week 2 matchup. So, it's kind of been a long time since Burrowhead was a thing now. And, the Chiefs are scared of the Bengals. Now, I'll say this. Before the year started, I was one of those people that was saying the team that has the best chance to knock off the Chiefs in the playoffs is the Bengals because they've done it. And all these other quarterbacks are winless against Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. I'll admit that. But that doesn't mean that, the Chiefs are afraid of the Bengals and they didn't want to see them in the playoffs. Yeah, the Chiefs don't care. I think if you're a fan, maybe you're like, yeah, I probably don't want to see Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins coming in the way they're playing. But you know what? The Broncos, hey, I know it was against the Chiefs' backups, but they should have won against the Chiefs in Arrowhead this year if it wasn't for that blocked field goal. So you know what? The Broncos somehow get past the Bills. That's who the Chiefs are going to be playing against. And, yeah, I don't know if the Chiefs want to see them. But playoffs are a different animal. So, obviously, maybe the Chiefs blow them out. But, no, the Broncos are going to be a tough out. And, we're going to talk about the playoff games in the final segment. But, I think the Bengals are going to be a tough team. Or Broncos are going to be a tough team to have to deal with. And, I don't like that there's some people out there that are saying that the Chiefs threw the game. The bigger problem here is, like I said, the Bengals should have won more games. Should not have lost to the Patriots. You gave up 44 points to the Steelers at home. And you had a 10-point lead against the Ravens at home that you lost, and you lost in overtime. And then also the game in Baltimore. I think you were up by 14 points. And you lost that game. So there are games you could point to and say, you should have won those games. You should have held on to the lead. What happened? And they'd be in the playoffs right now. But they're not. So don't blame the Chiefs. You can only blame yourselves. Now, there's probably some non-Bengal fans out there that are like, oh, yeah, they lost on purpose. No, they didn't. And you know what? If they would have played their starters, there's no guarantee that they beat the Broncos. The Chiefs lost to the Broncos in Denver last year. Now, again, different circumstances. It was snowing. Patrick Mahomes had the flu. Russell Wilson was the quarterback. But you still lost to them. And you almost lost to them this year with your starters. Broncos should have won the game if it wasn't for a blocked field goal, like I said. So there really is there's no guarantee that the Bengals would have made it had the Chiefs played their starters. I think it would have been a much closer game. It's not going to be 38-0 if Patrick Mahomes is playing the whole time. I'll tell you that right now. But don't pretend like, oh yeah, if the Chiefs played their starters, it's a guarantee that they're going to win. And the Bengals be in the playoffs. No. That's why I said the Broncos are a good team. They deserve to make the playoffs this year. I was flat out wrong about them. I thought, yeah, this team is not good. I mean, there was a lot of people that didn't think the Broncos were going to be good. But yeah, rookie quarterback. There's not a ton of household names on offense. Yeah, I just thought, they're not going to be very good. But you know what? Sean Payton is a very good coach and got the most out of his players, got the most out of Bo Nix this year. He improved as the season went on. The defense is still pretty good. They got a lockdown corner in Patrick Surtain. And they're in the playoffs right now. They're a good team. And if they keep playing like this for years to come, they're going to be a good team for a long time. And they're going to give the Chiefs a lot of problems. The AFC West is getting better. Now, who knows what's going to happen with the Raiders? I mean, I know Tom Brady is, a part-time owner now, and we talked about him trying to recruit Belichick. So maybe things will turn around in Vegas. But yeah, this division is going to be tough for the Chiefs. So, I mean, already, Jim Harbaugh, is turning the Chargers around. And I expected that, but I didn't expect them to make the playoffs. And then Broncos found their quarterback of the future, it looks like. And, Sean Payton's going to be there for a while. So if the Raiders can figure it out, this division's going to be really good. And this is what we thought a couple years ago when, there were trades all over the place. I mean, the Chargers got Khalil Mack, and the Raiders, they got, Devontae Adams. The Broncos got Russell Wilson. It was like, wow, this division is going to be so good. Sean Payton. Oh, wait, no. Actually, never mind. Forget what I said. Sean Payton was not with the Broncos. That was Nathaniel Hackett. Then Sean Payton came in and took over last year. But, no, I think now with Harbaugh there, Sean Payton's there, and, we'll see what happens with what the Raiders do. Yeah, no, this division is going to be a lot of fun to watch. And, the Broncos and the Chargers are only going to get better. So they're narrowing the gap with the Chiefs. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But, listen, the Chiefs did not throw this game on purpose so the Bengals couldn't make it. The Chiefs did what they wanted to do. They rested their starters. They had home field advantage locked up. They had their division wrapped up. They had nothing to play for. There's no point in playing your starters in a meaningless game. Now, I didn't expect them to lose 38-0, but they did the right thing. So the Bengals and whoever is a Bengals supporter, they got nobody to blame but themselves. You had 17 weeks, and it took you till the last quarter of the season to go on a run, and it was too late. And yeah, it's disappointing. I wanted to see Joe Burrow in the playoffs this year, but we're not going to see it. Got to wait till next year. They got to improve that defense and try to bring T. Higgins back. So, sorry if I went on a little bit of a rant, but it's true, though. Blame the Bengals. Don't blame the Chiefs. And the Broncos are a good team. So, we're going to take our final break of the show now. When we come back, I'm going to rank the playoff games from least intriguing or least exciting to most exciting. And that will bring us right to the end of the show. So for one final time today, make sure to stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, I am now going to rank the playoff games in the NFL, well, for this weekend, from least exciting to most exciting, or least intriguing to most intriguing. So let's get right into that. Now, first off, I want to say, I think all these games are good matchups. There's not one that I look at and say, yeah, this one's going to be terrible. All of these games are going to be good, or I hope. I hope there's no blowouts. There might be one or two blowouts I could see, but there's not one matchup that I look at and just think, yeah, I'd rather not watch this. Even if I did say that, I would still watch it because it's football. But let's go through it. So at number 6, I have the Ravens and the Steelers. Now, I might get some hate for that because it's like, how could you put them last? We've seen it already. Well, not in the... playoffs, not recently. I think the last time that they played against each other was the 2014 season in Pittsburgh. I think that was the last time they played them in the playoffs. Joe Flacco, Steve Smith, Justin Forsett was the running back. The Steelers didn't have Le'Veon Bell in that game because he got hurt in the regular season finale. Because if you remember, the Steelers had to win that game to win the division, and they did win the division. But then they had to play the Ravens in the first round, and they ended up losing that game. And Ben Roethlisberger against the Ravens that season, he threw 6 touchdown passes against them, and he did not throw 6 touchdowns in that game. Nope. But yeah, that was 10 years ago. It's crazy. But yeah, so the 10-year anniversary. Look at that, of when they last met in the playoffs, right? Because I don't think they play. Yeah, no, they didn't play them in the playoffs after that. But I have it at 6 just because, not because of the history of the rivalry, but it's just because it's just the current versions of these two teams. Again, that's really what this comes down to. Because the last time we saw these two teams play against each other, the Ravens blew them out. Now, the game was close. It was close. There were a couple of moments in the game that kind of shifted the momentum. But, yeah, the way the Steelers are coming in, losing 4 straight, yeah, I'm just not, and it's because it's a divisional game and we've seen them play twice already. In the first game they played against each other, the Steelers kicked 6 field goals to beat them. And the game is also on Prime. I mean, that didn't really factor into it, but still. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really juiced up for this game. Because Ravens-Steelers, that used to, I feel like this rivalry is kind of lost maybe some juice. I don't get. Maybe this is just coming from me because back in the day, when they used to have Ray Lewis and Troy Polamalu and all those guys, that was when the rivalry was at its peak. Now I just kind of feel like, hey, I mean it's still a rivalry, but I don't think it has the same flair like it used to. I think if you had that era of Steelers Ravens. If you had that era of those two teams playing in this game this weekend, it'd be ranked higher. And they have matched up in the playoffs before in that era. And one of them I just brought up, but that was after Ray Lewis. And actually, no, Polamalu was still playing in 2014, right? I think. Was it 2013 or 2014 when he retired? Either way, this game I have at 6. It's just because we've seen it twice already this year. And, yeah, the Steelers are not coming in with the best momentum. Really coming in with no momentum. At number 5, this one, again, this list was hard to rank. I put the Chargers and the Texans. The Chargers, they were a surprise team making the playoffs. I did say going into the year they were going to be a sneaky good team, and maybe they could make the playoffs. I didn't have them in the playoffs. They did make it. The Texans are another team. Yeah, they've just been a disappointment. They won their division relatively easily because, their division was not great this year. They played in the weakest division in football. And, C.J. Stroud, sophomore slump. They're dealing with injuries. They got no Stephon Diggs for this game, of course, and Tank Dell obviously getting hurt. It's the Nico Collins show, and, he's a very good receiver. They need guys to step up in this game offensively. Joe Mixon had a great start to the year, but had a very slow finish to the year. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not jacked up about it. I think it has the potential to be good, but I'm not like, I don't know. I'm not overly excited about it. Also, the other thing, too, is the Texans, they just love to start the playoffs off for us. It's like every year. If the Texans are in it, they're usually the first playoff game. The first playoff game on Saturday. It's been like that forever. I brought up the tweet that I saw. They start at 3:30, or, well, actually, this game's at 4:30, but still. They're on. They're always the first team that's on. What, does the NFL just want to get them out of the way? I don't get it. What do they have against the Texans? I don't know. But, no, I mean, it is an interesting matchup because we didn't get to see it this year. Because the other 3 matchups we did get to see. But I actually did rank them a little bit higher. Yeah, no, I mean, we'll see how it goes. Again, not going to make any picks. This will be the first matchup between Justin Herbert and C.J. Stroud. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I got them at number 5. I don't think we're going to see like an offensive explosion in this game. I think this could be on the lower side. But who knows? I mean, both teams have good defenses. We'll see. Number 4, I put the Vikings and the Rams. Now, we did see that. That was a good Thursday night game. That was the week that the Rams got back Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua, and they looked like a completely different team. And since that week, the Rams have gone on a run, and they won their division. Now, the Rams, their offense, I mean, I know they didn't play their starters last week, but, the previous 2 weeks, their offense wasn't looking great. I don't think we should get overly concerned about that. The defense has played better, which is good. But, this could be another... this could be like the game from the Thursday night. Both teams have good offenses. I mean, on the other side, like the Rams have Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, and Cooper Kupp. The Vikings have just as much offensive firepower with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones, TJ Hawkinson, and they have a good defense. So, and it's a standalone game on Monday. This will end off Super Wildcard Weekend. And, we'll see if Sam Darnold can bounce back after a rough start. But I think this game could be high scoring. Again, there's stars all over the place on offense on both sides. So, this game, this game could be fun once again. So I put them at 4. I do like the Commanders and the Buccaneers game. I put them at 3. I think we're going to see a much better game than what we saw in Week 1, where the Bucs dominated. Jane Daniels is a different quarterback than he was the first week of the season. He's got that experience now. He's gone through the whole year, and this is his first playoff game. How is he going to deliver in this game against the Bucs? Both teams, they can both put up points. Like the previous game I talked about, these two teams could put up points in bunches, and I think you could see something like that here in this game. And Jane Daniels, the last time we saw him on prime time, he had a good game against the Falcons. Let's see what he does in his first playoff game. And then on the other side, Baker Mayfield put together a good season. He's got that playoff experience. Mike Evans has got that playoff experience. Again, we'll talk about these games in more detail tomorrow. I am a little worried about the Bucs defense going into this game. But what does Todd Bowles have planned for Jaden Daniels when we go into this game on Sunday night? But, this is an intriguing game because I think this game could go either way. So we'll see. But, I have them at 3. I got the Packers and the Eagles at 2. That was a sloppy game in Brazil. There were a lot of points scored in that matchup, but Jordan Love had a good postseason last year. They almost went to the NFC Championship game. Two young quarterbacks that Jordan Love, good postseason last year. Jalen Hurts, not so good last year, but of course has been to the Super Bowl. You got 2 running backs that look good on their new teams, Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley. And these teams have matched up in the playoffs before. I think it's way back when, Aaron Rodgers and Michael Vick was the starter, and the Packers had to go on the road. That was the year the Packers went to the Super Bowl. I think, like I said before, I think if a team gets blown out, I think it'd be the Eagles blowing out the Packers, not vice versa. But you know what? The Packers are due for a good game. And I think, they got to bounce back here. So, I'm looking forward to this game. This game is the 4:30, middle part of Sunday. You got Burkhardt and Brady on the call. I think this is going to be a good game. Both quarterbacks are coming in banged up. But, I think it should be good. And then finally, this is the one that might surprise you. I think this is the most intriguing matchup of the weekend. and that is the Broncos and the Bills. Again, it was pretty hard to rank these games, but I think the Broncos and the Bills is the most intriguing. We didn't see that matchup during the regular season. We did see these two teams match up last year when Russell Wilson was the starter. The Broncos won on that Monday night. But yeah, I'm intrigued by it because you got a good defense in the Broncos coming in. Bo Nix playing well these last couple weeks. How are they going to do in this spot against the likely MVP in Josh Allen? I think this could be a good game. Now, this also has the potential to maybe be a blowout, but I don't think so. I think the Broncos are going to hang in there. I think they're kind of coming in with house money. So maybe they give the Bills a tough time, and then maybe the Bills pull away in the second half. I don't know. But I am intrigued by this because I want to see how Bo Nix does in his playoff debut in this spot. How are they going to at least, minimize Josh Allen? I don't know. Are they going to be able to slow down this Bills offense? We'll see. But I'm definitely, this is the playoff game that I'm most intrigued by. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts there. But let me know what you guys think, though. What game excites you the most? What's the most intriguing matchup going into this weekend? Let me know in the comments. So yeah, that is pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the video. And until next time, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.